As I said before, it is wonderful to be here with all of you today. This was a place where I preached for the very first time, so it's wonderful to be back. And today we're going to talk about welcome. And welcome is more than just a handshake or a hug when somebody walks in. Welcome is about preparing your heart to meet a new person or to meet somebody that you already know. Because you never know what somebody is carrying in their heart. You never know what somebody has going on in their life. So we have to be open to that. So I want to start the sermon with a little bit of a story. 12 years ago, I moved to Rhode Island. And I didn't know anybody when I came here. So on Saturday night, I had this brainstorm that I was going to go to church on Sunday. Now, mind you, when I lived in New York City, I never went to church. The most I went to was the Kadampa Temple to study meditation. And while that was good, I also had a crush on the woman who taught the class. So that was some of my incentive to go. But that was about as far as it got. So when I decided to go to church, I went on Google and I said, I'm going to go to a Unitarian church because Christians scared me. They don't anymore, but back then they did. And I decided I was going to go to a UU church. And I was quite impressed at how many UU churches were in Rhode Island. But what I decided to do is I decided to go to Newport, to this Channing Memorial Church that I found. So Sunday morning I got dressed and I hopped on the M60 bus and took it down here and got off the bus, and the bus driver told me how to walk to the church, and of course I got lost. And I eventually found a place. And when I got here, well, there was Peter Bowden out front, and he was shaking everybody's hand and welcoming them. And I wasn't used to this. So he shook my hand, and because he's never seen me before, he asked if I was just visiting or something. And I said, no, I just moved here. So he ushered me in the door, and he started introducing me to a lot of people, and everybody seemed happy to see me, and they said, let's talk during fellowship after church. And I was like, I'm from New York. I'm not used to this. You know, this is a little, what's going on here? You know, and then I sat down, and the pastor came over, and she started talking to me like she's known me forever. And I thought, this is getting creepier and creepier. And so I went to the service. The service was wonderful. And then I went to the fellowship hall, and all the people who said they wanted to talk to me during the fellowship, they all came over and talked to me. And I thought, this is even more weird. But I thought, this is really nice, though. I really feel welcomed here. So then they had a UU 101 talk, lesson. And I thought, you have to have a lesson to go to church? Okay. So I went, and we started talking about things, and we talked about welcoming congregation. And I thought, okay, so I'm really going to push this to the limit here. And I raised my hand, and I said, I need to tell you all that I'm transgender. And your response really floored me. Your response was, oh, that's very nice. And in other news, water is wet. And who are you? We want to know about you. And that really caught me off guard. But I left this church feeling like I wanted more. I didn't want to just stop there. It's like I wish that church could happen tomorrow, because I wanted to be here. I wanted to keep coming. So I came here again the following Sunday, and then I was invited to do different things. I was invited to do worship and arts. I didn't know what worship and arts was. I had no clue. But Pat, the person who was in charge of it, sat and told me what it was, and she said, it's where we work on the worship services, and would you like to be a part of it? And I said, sure, that sounds great. And I went to a meeting for that, and at one point she was getting very frustrated with me because everybody else was talking, and nobody ever asked me for my opinion before. So at one point she sits there and she has her hand on the desk, on the table, and she's drumming her fingers. And she says to me, surely you have an opinion, Lee. And I said, yes, and so I shared my opinion. And they actually took some of my opinion and put them in the worship service. And I thought, wow, this is turning into more than I thought it was going to turn into. Then I was invited to be part of the choir. And I always wanted to sing in the church choir. And here I am singing in the church choir. And I was so happy. And then I was invited to start Interweave. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. I thought, well, who's in charge of it? And they said, you would be. And I said, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not a leader. I'm really not. I'm kind of one of those people that just follows along. And I was encouraged to do that. I was shepherded to do that. I had a lot of people supporting me. And I started Interweave. And little did I know that 10 years later, we were going to be celebrating 10 years of Interweave. Never thought that would happen, because I was really trying to figure this out as I was going along. We were definitely doing this on the fly. But I did do it. And I got so much support from so many people here. People who guided me, who showed me. I have this incredible woman who's the worship associate, Pam, who really kind of befriended me and showed me all the ropes of the church. And there's so many other people here. There's the Millams, and there's the Perestas, and lots of other people who just showed me what to do. And I just didn't expect any of this. So your welcome here to me on the first day changed my life drastically. My continuing to come here and getting involved in different things and getting to know different people and doing the different tasks that I was doing changed the trajectory of my life exponentially. Because I remember saying to the pastor at one point, I said, I'm really liking this church stuff. What do I do? How do I take it up a few notches? And she said, you go to seminary. And I said, what? You go to seminary. And I thought, I'm never going to get in. And I filled out the whole form. And it's not just a little, name and address. You have to answer all these questions, and they talk about your ministerial call. And I didn't know what a ministerial call was. So it was a challenge. But I filled it in, and I got in. I got accepted, much to my surprise. Then Pat, worship and art, remember Pat, the worship and arts person, said to me, you should preach. I'm not a public speaker. who you're going to be. So I had to look up how to write a sermon because I never did one. And I sat in front of the coffee shop down in Newport, and I wrote my first sermon, which happened to be around Passover. And I was surprised that I thought, oh, this is going to be horrible. People are going to hate this, and they're going to go running out of the church when I start. And people didn't. People stayed, and then people told me how much they liked the service, the sermon, and could they have a copy of it? That surprised me. But you all changed me. You started putting me into formation, into something that I never thought I would be. And why is this all important? Well, we're talking about welcome. Welcome today is a challenge because there's a lot of topics out there, a lot of things out there that when we hear them, they kind of, they give us bias against other people. Thomas Merton writes, "Our job is to love others without stopping to inquire whether or not they are worthy." That's a tough order. That's not easy. And especially when we talk about things that, like today, so much we hear about white privilege, racism, transphobia, cisgender privilege, economic privilege, educational privilege, ageism, ableism. And the list goes on. And how do we talk about these things? Because in order for us to be welcoming, we have to know ourselves. Because these things can trip us up when it comes to being welcoming. But these conversations are hard. We get stuck. Because privilege is something that we don't really know that we have, but yet we do have. And that's what is difficult. So that's why these conversations are necessary. We must not let the complexity of these issues deter us from engaging in deep, compassionate, and kind conversations. And again, these conversations are hard. We can't just go, we're going to have a conversation about white privilege today, and we're going to be done with it. No, that's not what's going to happen. These conversations are going to bring more and more up. Because we all have narratives about this. We all have our own stuff about these things. And what we have to do is to take those narratives and put them to the side and sit and really hear each other begin to talk about these topics and dismantle them so that we understand them about ourselves and how we work with these topics. You know, like we have things like some people probably haven't heard about cisgender privilege. What does that mean? Well, usually that's for people who are, it doesn't matter if they're gay or straight, but they're people who are comfortable in their own skin suit. In other words, they're not like trans people who have gender dysmorphia, where they want to change their bodies. Cisgender people don't. So here's an example of cisgender privilege. Like I said, I sang in my church choir, and we used to sing this song. Now I just drew a blank to it. Give me a second. I'm turning 60 this year. Memory goes. It's not "We're Gonna Sit at the Welcome Table," and that's a song that's going through my head right now. Anyway, it's a song that we sing, and there's a line in the song that was added where it talks about welcoming trans people and queer people. So we have a few queer people in the choir, and when it came time to giving out verses, a couple of trans people, a couple of queer people raised their hand to sing that part. And it's really written for somebody who is trans or queer. But this guy who sits next to me, and I really like him, he's cisgender, he's straight, married, and he insisted on singing that line. And I thought to myself, that's cis privilege. He just decided that he felt so important that he could sing that line. Now, probably some of you are thinking, so what's wrong with that? And that's part of the problem, is that we don't understand cisgender privilege. There's a lot of things about transphobia that we don't understand. There's a lot of things about what is this. We're not on a gender binary thing anymore. We're having, gender variance. What does that mean? And these are topics, if we're going to be welcoming to the truest sense, we must talk about. But we must talk about it in a place of love. Church should be a place where we can talk about these topics without fear of reprisal or shame. So that means there's no right or wrong about this. We're just going to talk about it. And the more information we get from other people, the more we can learn. But this takes time, and this takes hard work. And this can bring us to a place where we can celebrate others rather than tolerate others. And that is so important. That's the important thing. When you see somebody walk through that door, that you celebrate them. It doesn't matter what they are. That you can just do what you did with me. Love on them. I just went to this prom on Friday. You may have heard about it. This little prom that happened where there was over like 200 kids. It was just totally amazing, and I was so proud to know that I had a part in that. I'm so proud to see how much that prom has grown from the little prom we had at the Fraternal Order of Police Hall, where we had to go that morning through heavy fog, just hoping we could get there without crashing. And it's grown so much. And probably some of you are thinking, well, they're youth. Youth are going to grow up. And these are tough times that we live in. It's very tough times, and especially for queer people. 13,700 transgender military personnel were fired because of who they were. They're putting a briefing before the Supreme Court to take away the protection against firing people for being queer. If they do that, that's going to set queer civil rights back decades. They want to do things, in some states they want to do things like sterilize trans people. So it's getting tough. And as these youth grow up, they may come to a place where they decide, I need community. And I need a community that has my back. And they might remember, oh yeah, Interweave. Oh yeah, underneath that there's Channing Memorial Church. Maybe I'll go there. Because Channing's church has done so much by allowing by allowing Interweave to be here. And Interweave has done so much for Channing by being here. It's a good partnership. But we all need to do work around these topics. So someday you may have a young adult come here who was much younger than I was when I came here, come in here and be looking for a place. Are you ready? Are you ready to touch their heart so that maybe you can change their life the way you changed mine? Maybe you can help them to change the trajectory of their life the way you did for me. It's my prayer that that happens. Because this, I know Channing is a loving place. I think about this place every Sunday. Every single Sunday. I miss this church. I really do. This feels like home to me. So I'm very grateful to be up here and to have shared a message with you and to be celebrating this service with you. Thank you.